The slate looks set to be wiped clean for South Africa's construction firms, 6 of whom today announced a deal with the state wherein they'll pay 1.25 billion rand over 12 years to a fund to back socio-economic development. The 7th company, we believe Murray & Roberts, will contribute a further 250 million rand. And this all follows a 2013 settlement with the Competition Commission over collusion charges and hopefully puts the embattled sector on a better footing with one of its biggest sources of work. And joining him now is Webster Mfebe. He's CEO of the South African Forum of Civil Engineering Contractors. Webster, thank you very much for coming into studio. Does this mean that it's all the collusion charges of the past are now totally behind the sector?
From the industry point of view, we regard this as an all-inclusive settlement, notwithstanding the independence of the various state organs that still have to go through their own processes. Among them, for an example, is the CIDB, which will then make their announcement having due regard to the all-inclusive settlement that has been made today.
So that would include, for example, the Hawks probe, and that was announced earlier this year.
Well, the Hawks probe, as you know, that the Hawks are guaranteed their independence by the Constitution. We are hopeful that they will have due regard to the inclusive agreement with the government of South Africa, because we need to move forward and put the industry on a developmental growth and transformative trajectory.
So tell us about this SocioEconomic Fund. How's it going to work? What does it aim to do with the monies that will be contributed by the 7 companies?
Firstly, the objective of the fund is the development, enhancement, and transformation of the industry, as well as the promotion of social infrastructure for all South Africans. It will be co-managed by the participating industry representatives, that is the 7 companies, including SAFCEC, the South African Forum of Civil Engineering Contractors and Industry Body, and government. And the administration will be carried out by a company so designated by National Treasury.
So it's an independent entity?
It's an independent entity, and it will advance, for an example, and give support, financial support to young trainee artisans and engineers from the disadvantaged background, promotion of maths and science education at basic education level, among other things.
And there's quite a big, there is a very big push and commitment to transformation. And one of the parts of the settlement is that the companies involved will have to increase their black equity ownership to levels of at least 40% or mentor 3 emerging sort of companies. Tell us about that aspect of transformation, because it sounds quite interesting and it's quite ambitious, the targets that you've got.
It's quite ambitious. Perhaps allow me to say that the settlement has 3 elements or pillars. The first one is the financial contribution you have referred to, which is the 1.5 billion rands over a period of 12 years by these companies, assuming that Murray & Roberts, the last company, 7th one, will get on board. And the second one is the transformation commitment that you've mentioned. If those companies manage to give equity to 40% of black-owned companies in terms of the equity, which we call the equity model, then we'll regard that as having transformed for the purpose of this agreement. And the other route is to mentor in terms of enterprise development and a mentee company to up to a tune of 25% of the annual turnover of the participating companies, considering that all combined, the companies, their turnover, annual turnover is 45 billion rands. That will amount to 9 billion rands for all involved.
Okay. So in other words, building up black businesses from the ground up, which is clearly a really necessary aspect of the sector. And I suppose, does it mean that there will be work unlocked by the government, because there hasn't been a lot of civil construction work coming through. And to some extent, we as onlookers have wondered if it's because of the bad relationship that the contractors have had with government over collusion charges, and also their perceived lack of transformation.
I do believe that it will unlock the development of the industry and economic activity and the upliftment of the emerging contractors. Because if you take into consideration that South Africa has an ambitious objective in terms of the National Development Plan of investing in about 30% of the GDP in gross capital formation. At the moment, we're around 20%. We're lagging behind. We have a deficit of 10%, which will cost billions of rands. In order to increase the capacity, if we then build that capacity of emerging contractors, we will have enough to deal with the project. And also the commitment of government to roll out the infrastructure. They speak recently of the 40 priority projects, for an example, that are coming on stream. And working together with the established sector and the emerging sector, then that will unlock that capacity.
I mean, but is this explicit, that the work hasn't been forthcoming because the government has essentially been angry with the listed construction sector over the competition charges, over the findings of the Competition Commission into collusive practices, and over its lack of transformation? And does that now get us past that hurdle where there is actually a commitment to work together?
I don't think that there was a deliberate attempt on the part of government to squeeze out the companies that are involved. It's the economic conditions globally that impact on South Africa, and the fiscus. For an example, if you look at the budget allocation, they are regressive instead of being progressive. The expenditure in terms of the MTF period, as announced by the Reserve Bank, is around 5.3%, which is very low, and we need to up that number. For an example, if you consider that the MTF period 2013 to 2015, an allocation to infrastructure of 800 billion, only 530 billion was actually spent on infrastructure. Again, we have to understand that infrastructure involves other things like locomotives, not necessarily actual construction. Actual construction accounts for 65% of that. I think with the change of the economic environment, with the rand strengthening, and also with the trust deficit between the construction company having been narrowed, there will be enough enthusiasm also on the part of the company to invest in infrastructure.
Well, let's hope so, and let's hope that it heralds a better decade ahead for the construction sector. Webster, thanks very much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you very much.
Webster Mfebe is CEO of the South African Forum of Civil Engineering Contractors.